Hi, Elena.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm doing well. Have been looking forward to this session with you.
Great. It's nice to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for making time for me today.
Oh, absolutely. What did you want to start off with today?
Um, well, I wanted to talk a little bit about um, last time I was with you, we were talking about like assertiveness skills and I my desire to like increase my level of assertiveness, especially with family. And I've begun doing some of that, but I'm having a hard time with it.
Okay. You're having a hard time?
Yeah, I almost find that I'm more anxious since I've started using like some of the skills, like practicing saying no without like explaining myself too much or um yeah, that is the one that's really giving me a hard time.
Okay. So you're able to implement them, but then you're just having a lot of anxiety afterwards.
Yeah, and it's almost like for example, this week my family asked me if I was able to come over and help them put up some Christmas lights. But I had just gotten back from residency and I had only had about like 3 hours of sleep and then I traveled that day and I was just like really exhausted. I tried taking a nap, but it just like it wasn't working. I was really tired and I just wanted to stay home and rest really after, especially after like having such a long weekend. I was just looking forward to be home. So um I told my aunt, like, I don't think that's gonna happen today. Like I'm really tired. And I just left it at that, even though I really wanted to be like, I'm really tired because I did this and this and this to like almost make her understand why I was so tired. And I could tell that she was disappointed when I said no, like I'm not going to be coming over tonight. Um, and she was like, okay, well, I'll talk to you later. We'll see you tomorrow. And when we got off the phone, I just sat there for a while and I started thinking about like, oh God, like, does she think that, like I appreciated her including me, or is she upset with me? Does she feel like I'm not contributing enough, or everybody else is over there helping and I'm not? Like what is everybody thinking about that? Um and then I start feeling guilty and I'm like, maybe I should go over there. So then I'm like kind of, you know, going back on what the decision that I've already made, like maybe I should go over there even though I'm exhausted um and so it's really difficult. Like I sat there for probably like an hour going back and forth with myself about it.
You feel like you have to explain your reasonings not only to your aunt, but to yourself as well.
Yeah, it honestly, I guess that's what I was doing because I sat there trying to rationalize my decision. And it seems like rationally I can, it's just Christmas lights, it's just one night. Like I'll see them the next day. And, if one of my family members, like if I asked them for help, but they had been traveling all day and I was aware of that, I probably wouldn't be upset that they were too tired. So
Mhm.
it's like rationally, I'm able to know that, but I still feel guilty. I'm like, oh God, like, they were probably all counting on me to be there. And now I'm saying no again. And that's also something that we've talked about in some of our past sessions, like being in grad school and working full time and, you know, having a partner and just getting a puppy and all of it, and also having like a social life. I feel like I'm like a broken record, I'm always saying, no, I can't do this, or no, I have homework today. And I guess I'm just so tired of telling my family that I can't come to family stuff because of I have this paper to write, or So I think at this point, I just feel like a broken record.
I mean, you are in a very busy time in your life. And it's, I know in our past sessions, we've talked a lot about how in the past your family has kind of put a little bit of guilt on you if you're saying no. So it
Mhm.
makes sense that you feel the need to, that you feel guilty when you're, you know, um, trying to meet your own needs.
Um,
You're tired, and you don't want to do something. That's your decision to
mhm,
make. And it's understandable that you now feel guilt and, create some guilt inside of your head
mhm.
with your past family dynamics.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you were saying that, like I wasn't going to mention this at first, but it did remind me, like, on Thanksgiving, my boyfriend and I plans to wake up, have some breakfast together, and have like a slow morning since we haven't really been able to spend a lot of quality time together these past couple of weeks. Um, and so we are like, let's get breakfast and let's take the dog to the beach. So, because we haven't taken her to the dog beach yet, and I was like very excited, and so we decided to go do that. And afterwards, we went to go see his family, and we spent some time with his family, and I realized it was about like 3:30. So I'm like, oh, okay, we should probably head over to my family's house because we do dinner with them. And we get to my family's house, and the first thing my uncle says when I walk in is, "Oh, we were beginning to think you guys weren't going to show up," which is like ridiculous because my family's so close. Like, I would never not show up to Thanksgiving, and they're all aware that that's where I would like to be, on Thanksgiving is at my grandmother's house.
Mhm.
Um, and I did over explain myself. I was like, well, we were doing this morning, and then we went to, Justin's grandfather's house, and we had to like we just wanted to have a slow morning and sleep in a little bit. And so I like sat there and over explained, and it did not feel better. Even though I explained myself to him, I felt no better. And so I just kind of, walked away and just let it go. Um, but it was interesting because, I felt weird after explaining myself, but then I did, there was a lot going on, and I did kind of just move on. I didn't ruminate as much about it. So I think that I ruminate more when I am alone,
Mhm.
or at home, rather than when I'm like busy or there's things going on. But that was something that bothered me. It's like I want to be here, but I also have, his family too, that, that's it comes back to what we have talked about in past sessions, that my family sometimes forgets that there are, other people outside my family that I need to see. And, his family is now my family too. And so I don't want him to feel like the world just revolves around just my family, and exclude his or place this like importance on my family, that wouldn't feel good. So,
You're putting a lot of time and effort into making sure that everybody's feelings are not hurt. And then those kind of jokes or jabs are
mhm,
painful to you when you've spent so much time trying to make sure that you're not hurting anybody's feelings and recognizing, oh, it's time to go over to my family's because I've spent enough time, with your boyfriend's family, and then spending time alone with your boyfriend and your dog, and then trying to put in, like, you're making quite an effort to spread your time evenly so that you're not hurting anybody, and then it feels like it's still not enough.
yeah, that's exactly the feeling. It's because I'm like listening to you say that now, it's like it makes me realize that like because I feel annoyed or frustrated when like my uncle said that to me. But then when you mentioned like it's hurtful, I'm thinking, yeah, it is. I think that's what it is. Like my surface level emotions are like, okay, I'm annoyed. That was an annoying comment. Why did you say that? You know? But then I think deep down it is hurtful because I am trying my hardest. Like I'm doing my best every single week. I do my best to get my homework done, go to work and make some money so that I'm able to pay my bills. Also being a partner and making sure that I'm being an equal partner, and that I'm not placing everything on him for the house that we share. And um, then my pets, of course, and then I've got friends, that I'd like to see. Like that's just more of like a enjoyable activity, being around friends. Like I feel like I need that in order to balance my own stress. And just being home. Like I like to be home. I like to have alone time as well. And then also making room for family as well. There's something every week that somebody needs or somebody needs help with, or like a dinner that we're doing, which I love going to my family dinners, but I think I just would like to feel not guilty for not attending sometimes, and I don't know if it's something that they're getting in their head for, oh, like Elena doesn't want to be here. Like she just would rather be doing something else, when that's not the case. It's really just that I'm trying to prioritize my mental health and not stretch myself too thin, because, Sundays when they usually do dinners, like I'm wrapping up some last minute assignments and things like that. And so if I go have dinner with them, it's either go have dinner with them and do homework until 11 o'clock at night, and then you don't have any Sunday time with your partner, or spend the day doing the homework, focus at home, and then be able to like hang out with my partner, watch some TV, go for a walk, things that we like to do. And sometimes like that's the only thing I want to do. So um yeah, I think it is hurtful when um I feel like they don't understand that, like, hey, I'm trying my hardest, I want to be here, like cut me some slack. I think that's really I want them to cut me some slack.
You're starting to recognize, it seems like, that your needs are valuable, and to put your needs, I guess maybe not first, but at least acknowledging them and
Mhm.
recognizing them.
Yeah, it took me a while to realize that that's what was going on, because you feel that stress and you're like, what is this stress, where is it coming from? And I think like right before I started seeing you, that's kind of what made me come here, is like, okay, I'm neglecting myself in ways because I'm trying to be everywhere at once. And I need to figure out how to, I don't want to use the word fix this, but I need to figure out how to cope with like all of this.
How do you think you would feel by addressing this with your family?
Like, if I'm being serious, like if I'm being honest, like as of right now, it doesn't feel like an option for me. Like I can't see myself addressing my family with this. And I think it's like fear that's holding me back, is like I don't want them to feel, again, I'm like putting their feelings first. Like I don't want them to feel bad. I'm afraid that they won't understand. Um I'm afraid that they'll be like, okay, like that's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to make you feel bad. Like I feel like maybe it'll turn into like a defensive thing, and then it's just going to end up with me feeling like, like I'm the jerk here.
So if you bring it up and they are not understanding of where you're coming from, then you fear that it will bring upon like more anxiety.
Yeah, I think that yeah, I just don't want to stir the bucket, and I think that that's always been like, you know, a thing in our family. Like, don't talk, like, we're so close, but we also don't talk about when we're having problems with each other, which is weird because you would think with how close we are, we'd be able to do that. Like, we can talk about our problems. I can go to my family and I could talk about my problems that I'm having with anybody else in the world, right? But for some reason, I can't like tell my aunt or my uncle, like, hey, like, can you not say these things to me? Like, I'm really trying my hardest right now. And sometimes I feel like you guys are not recognizing that, or maybe you don't see it that way. Because I can see how on the outside it looks to them like, oh, like it's to the point where I feel like when I'm telling them, hey, I have an assignment due tonight, like I'm not going to make it, I feel like they think I'm lying. So I'm like that much in my head. And I'm like, why do I feel that way? Like, why do I feel like they don't believe me when I say that I'm busy?
Mm. So just a lot of, not necessarily the, even in the circumstances where they're not laying on the guilt, there's this guilt that's like created inside of your head,
Yeah.
and a fear of being able to speak up for yourself. The family dynamics and the environment that you've grown up in have not been conducive to valuing your voice and having an opinion and voicing that opinion and voicing your needs.
Yeah, like I very much so still feel like, like I'm about to turn 27 in a couple of months. Um, I'm in a serious relationship of almost 5 years. I just bought my first home, like a year ago, and in grad school, I'm very like self-sufficient, but yet I still feel like a kid when I'm like, I still feel like I'm not, it's hard to explain. My brother, he has two kids, right? Nobody expects anything from my brother, right? And I don't know if this has to do with gender roles or if it's because he is a father, and they recognize, they see that as he's busy, he's got things going on, and that's valid enough for them. So I'm wondering, like, what is it going to be like if I had a child? Would they recognize that, okay, Elena's busy, she's got things, she's got responsibilities? So it makes me feel like it's all my responsibilities that I currently have not valid enough, you know, to be seen as an adult with, my own life and my own schedule every day. Like, I'm sure that my family has their list of things that they have to get done every day or every week. And, I have those lists as well. And sometimes I feel like they still see me as like 18, probably working part-time, have a lot of free time on my hands. Cause I helped a lot when I was 18. I was always with my family. But life has changed. And yeah, and I just wonder, why is it so hard for me to sit down and have this conversation with them? Um, it goes back to that fear, is like, what am I really afraid of? You know, and I think I'm afraid of them not understanding. And I really don't know why that's so scary.
I know that previously you had mentioned that your aunt and uncle kind of took on like a more like parental role in your life when you were younger. So there is kind of like a role, it seems, that you've felt like you need to play. And regardless of the fact that you've grown and matured and you're no longer um, needing the same things from them, you're kind of caught in trying to play a role that you know used to serve you well in your life, but now that you're older, you've got other things going on, and it seems like you're feeling a little devalued. as if the things that are going on in your life are not as important as the things going on in other people's lives.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's because my own dad, like my dad and I are so close, and I could have full-blown plans with my dad, right? And they could be like plans that we've made for 6 months. And then if I called him and said, Dad, I am so sorry, I am not going to make it today, he would be like, that's no problem, like that's fine. Don't worry about it, you know? Like for example, he wanted to have dinner with me before I left for residency. And I was like, hey, I just found out I have this paper due and I'm not gonna make it over, And he's like, that's fine, focus on what you need to get done. And it's like, oh God. And then sometimes like I'm like, okay, does he really mean that? But I know he does. And so he's way easy on me and like I love that about him. And I can't expect everybody to be like that, but I think I'm looking for a little bit of that kind of compassion from the rest of my family, like specifically my aunt and my uncle. And I can see it starting to kind of those behaviors are like playing out to like one of my cousins. Like if I'm not around, like he's said some things to my other cousin that he feels like, oh, Elena doesn't, she's not uh here for our family as much as everybody else. But my cousin's also 20 years old and he was like 12 when my parents divorced when I was 18. So, it's not like his fault that he didn't see how life was when I was his age and how involved I was and how, I don't expect him to like see and notice like how things have progressed over the years. And I'm sure one day, like when he's where I'm at, like when he's got a lot going on, he'll be like, dang, like I'm really busy, and he might find himself in a similar position, but I think that's what I'm trying to prevent is anybody feeling that way, that I'm not helping enough or that I'm not there enough. And but then also trying to remind myself, hey, like you're doing the best that you can, like you're an individual, you have your own life. Just because you don't have kids doesn't mean that you're not busy.
When you were talking about your dad, you kind of mentioned the way that you were talking about it, kind of mentioned like it feels good when you're able to communicate that and it feels like he understands.
Yeah.
What kinds of what kind of, if any, like rumination is occurring after you've addressed something like that with your dad?
I would say like little to none.
Okay.
Like, there's sometimes where I'm like, dang, like, I feel like I should be there for him right now, or I should be over at the house, like he's making dinner for everyone, maybe I should be there. But then at the same time, like I can hear it in his voice, like, don't worry about it, and I'm like, okay, like cool. So he's like allowing me to just like be a human and like he's not expecting it's almost like my dad, like he doesn't treat me like I owe him my presence, like that I have to be there. He allows me to be independent and like an individual. And I think that he also he knows that I'm busy. He knows how hard that I work. And I think that that it feels good, like I don't think I ruminate too much because of that.
I heard a lot of shoulds and haves and expectations.
Yeah. Yeah, like the shoulds and musts like are a big thing for me. Like, oh, I should be here, I should be doing this, or I should be feeling this way. And um yeah, that's a lot of what my rumination looks like is those kinds of thoughts.
Mhm. That's exhausting.
Hmm. Yeah.
So the kind of dynamic that you have with your dad is just in a way such that you don't feel a whole lot of pressure. Like you feel like you're um, you're being understood and you're being heard and you're being taken seriously. And so that seems to be easier to be able to kind of move on to say, nope, this isn't going to work. Like I can't meet up or whatever.
Mhm.
And then to just be able to move on. Whereas in other relationships where you've got, where you're not feeling that, where you're feeling like you should be doing something, you are expected to do something, and you might be given some guilt for not being with your family. Those are the relationships that are are creating a lot of anxiety for you afterwards.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's like I feel like I spend more time trying to figure out like their mindsets. Like I catch myself like, oh, my dad has two kids that are, you know, like my brother's a Marine. He's got his own family. He's got his own life. He's been on his own since he was 18. I moved out when I was 19 and I've been pretty independent since then. Um, and I think my dad's like he's used to that, right? He knows that his kids are busy, they're doing things, whereas my aunt and my uncle, I call them the parents, like because it after my parents split up, like they really did I took care of my dad, they took good care of me, right? So I love these people like very, very much. But it's like um I think their kids they have had a very different style of parenting. Like um my younger or my oldest cousin is 22, just recently got her first job, you know. Um, they are living at home, which is, I think, a good thing, you know. Um, and then my other cousin, he's just got his first job as well. So they're just now starting um having a sense of responsibility and going into adulthood. And it started a bit later than it had for my brother and I. So I think like, you know, they still look at their kids and very much so treat their kids like they're 16, 17 years old, you know, and I think that sometimes that might translate over to me as well, you know. And I think it's hard for them to not see us as the kids, you know. Um, and so it's funny how I'll sit there and think about all that kind of stuff. Like, why do they feel this way? Like, what's going on? Like, what could it be? And instead of just sitting back and being like it's okay to say no, you know. um so it's really that the rumination is, you know, I'm practicing saying no, I'm doing kind of what we talked about, but it feels bad afterwards. Like I feel like I'm still in this process of becoming more comfortable with saying no, if that makes sense.
You really, really love your aunt and uncle, and you also want to be independent and have some autonomy and
Mhm.
have a voice and a say in where you spend your time.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm glad that you've been like I mean, that's so brave to be utilizing some of those assertive skills that we've talked about before. So kudos to you. We, I mean, we can't control what other people's expectations or how they respond to things. We can only control what we can control.
Mhm.
So I appreciate that you're using those assertiveness skills. And it sounds like the next step is kind of um, trying to decrease some of that rumination afterwards. And so
Mhm.
there's a lot of different ways that we could kind of go about trying to cope and calm ourselves down and decrease some of that rumination. And we can kind of explore some of those over the next few sessions. So I don't know, a few things that kind of come to mind that might help, and you can kind of, you know, this is for you. So you give me your feedback on what you think might work, and you can be trying them, and then we can talk about them and see what works and what doesn't.
Okay.
Um, but some of the things is just like some mindfulness techniques. I don't know, are you how familiar are you with mindfulness?
Yeah, I've heard about mindfulness. I've tried like, meditating in the past. It's not really for me, but I find that some other activities can give me that feeling that I think some people might get from meditation. Um so I think that would, yeah, if that's something that can help with ruminating, then I'm there. I would like to try that.
Okay. And I mean, you don't have to do like full blown like meditation or anything. This can be something where, say you tell your family, I'm not able to make it to dinner tonight. And then in your head, you start thinking of all of the what ifs. Um, it's something that you can just be mindful and recognize what is happening. So recognizing, oh, I'm ruminating. Like I'm creating scenarios and dialogue inside of my head that's not real. Um, and you don't have to judge yourself on it. Like, very normal to ruminate and to create that dialogue. But just recognizing it and then coming up with something else to focus on. So maybe it's, I don't know, any like hobbies that you could do, or like what do you enjoy doing that's something that kind of is like a something that you could do to like decompress?
So it's funny, two things came to mind. I really like to like wash my face and do like a skincare routine. I've got some things, and like I have like a face steamer too. So like I'll sit there and I recognize like when I'm doing that, I really am not thinking about anything else. Like I'm just kind of zoning out and in a good way. And
Okay.
another one, it sounds silly, but I like to stand out in the front yard and like I have a sprinkler that I use that's like a hose attachment, but sometimes I like to hand water like my yard like with the hose. And I just sit out there for like 20 minutes, and it feels so good to water the lawn. Like it's something that feels good. It's like gratifying. Um and it doesn't make sense, but and then I really don't find myself thinking about anything else other than what I'm like doing in that moment. Like, okay, I got this section done. We're gonna move over here now. And um so I think that would be good. Like maybe if, obviously I can't water my lawn anytime I feel like I'm ruminating, but those could be a good place to start. Um, and kind of explore some other activities that give me that feeling of I'm only focusing on what I'm doing right now.
Mhm. Yeah. So when you start noticing that you're having those ruminating thoughts, then you can just kind of, don't have to judge yourself. You can just say, I'm going to do some self-care. I'm going to go wash my face. I'm going to do something else that takes my mind off of it. Um, and also sometimes like just some words of affirmation of being like, I am allowed to say no. It is okay that I'm not going to dinner.
Yeah.
It's okay that I'm tired.
Yeah,
So
that's
just
good.
some of those things we can kind of work on those if you want to kind of explore some of that over the next week, and then we can kind of talk about if it worked, if it didn't, and kind of come up with some other ideas. But I think that kind of focusing on that anxiety that's coming up after you're asserting yourself is kind of the next step.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm so glad that we were able to talk today because I'm happy that I'm implementing like saying no, right? Without over explaining myself. But then I was like, dang, so it's like one problem solved, but then the next it brings up another problem, which is, oh my God, I feel like bad after that. And then I'm like, sitting there ruminating and spending all this time on like, oh, what are they thinking? What could have I done differently? But I, I'm I'm looking forward to trying the mindfulness and seeing if that helps relieve some of the ruminating. Because like I said, I spent like an hour the other day, and I don't want to keep doing that. So
Yeah. that can get really exhausting. So, um, yeah, I appreciate you being here today and just your openness and your willingness to try new things and try things that are kind of scary and just being brave. So
Thank you.
it was really great to see you today, and we will pick up next week.
All right, sounds good. I will keep you updated on the mindfulness.
It was good. Good
All
luck.
right. Thank you.